Welcome, everybody, to the first episode of Dynasty Sports Podcast. Myself, Cole Jirik, my co-host, Joey Blackmore, down in beautiful Florida. I am up in North Dakota, in Bartlett, North Dakota. We were both former North Dakota State Bison, won some national championships, played some football, and got a good background in football. We're going to bring a lot of football topics to you. Obviously, they had the draft this last weekend. That's going to be the big sticking point for us. Joey, what'd you think of the draft this weekend?
Well, I thought it was an extremely talented draft, and I thought it was interesting with there's certain teams that definitely rose to the top and I think are going to really set themselves apart, and maybe even immediately, if not, within the next couple of years. And then there's other teams that kind of just wasted it, including my favorite team, but we'll get into them later. That's the Green Bay Packers. Wasn't good.
Yeah, I mean, you look at football now, and it's obviously changed so much. The rules favor the offensive side quite a bit in a lot of situations. A lot of guys, a lot of receivers and quarterbacks are able to play right away. Do you think a big reason a lot of guys can play football right away at a high level in college and in the NFL is the amount of 7-on-7 and routes and stuff they play growing up? Or what do you think is kind of contributing to this air raid and quarterbacks and receivers able to jump in right away and college and professional levels?
Well, I think for sure the 7-on-7 aspect of high school, which is a ton, and college, it helps because that's what the NFL is becoming. I mean, over the last 5 years, it's truly developed into a very pass-heavy team, and those are the teams that you're seeing winning. I mean, obviously there's exceptions, like the San Francisco 49ers, for example, who did make it to the Super Bowl and destroyed my Packers in the NFC Championship game, and they ran all over them. But for the most part, the team that has the best quarterback that can really sling it and has weapons around them that are, whether it's a back out of the backfield as a receiving threat. Tight ends are huge receiving threats these days. But those are the teams that are going to have the most success. And year in and year out, it all comes down to the quarterback, really.
And like you said, the quarterback is the most important. And the number one pick of the draft was Joe Burrow, a quarterback out of LSU that seemed to break every record in college football this last year. That team had 14 players drafted with Joe Burrow going number one overall. The LSU Tigers were pretty dang good this year. It was amazing. What do you think of Burrow's going one? What do you think? How do you think he'll be as a pro?
Yeah, I think he was about as big of a no-brainer as you can get. I know people were asking what you thought Tua. Some people were saying Herbert, which I thought was a little hilarious, personally. But Tua was really good, don't get me wrong. But Joe Burrow was, I mean, he's about as can't miss as you get. And it's crazy that he had to transfer to really kind of show his true colors. And that was pretty wild. I saw something that he was ranked a 6th round grade going into his senior season, and then he goes from that to the number one pick. And I thought his interview after getting drafted was pretty cool, just from a standpoint of being humble. And I wasn't very good as a junior. Right. I thought that was pretty interesting that he had the self-awareness of that, and he's the right pick, and he'll be fun to watch. I mean, he can sling it, and he's pretty athletic. He's very poised in the pocket. He can throw on the run as well. I mean, he really can do it all.
He can. I mean, he's got AJ for the ball too as well. Obviously, the Zach Taylor, the coach, coming from the Sean McVay tree that made it to the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and I think he's a guy that can learn a system quickly. Supposedly, the Bengals got him a playbook 2 weeks ago, and he's been learning.
Yeah, I heard that.
That'll be interesting. With no rookie minicamp, that's got to be tough on some of these quarterbacks, and having Joe Burrow getting those extra 2 weeks, that's got to be an advantage over Tua and Herbert, the next two quarterbacks off the board. What are your thoughts on those two guys?
I think Tua's really good, and I think he's going to be really special. I don't think he should play right away, and I don't think he needs to there. And especially with the COVID-19 pandemic, there's going to be a huge learning curve that he doesn't get to have now. I mean, there might not even be preseason, who knows? And I don't think that's a bad thing for him. But the Dolphins have kind of set themselves up to maybe be pretty good in a few years, and building around him. I think he's special. I really do. I mean, he can really sling it. He's got really good accuracy on top of being an athletic guy, but I think they're gonna be in good shape with him.
Yeah, I think so as well. I like Tua a ton in this draft, and obviously leading up to this year was tank for Tua. Tua was the number one pick all along. Obviously, the injury concerns. You're always concerned about quarterbacks getting hurt.
Yeah.
I don't make the comparison to our guy Carson Wentz a little bit there. A guy that's been beat up a few times, and you wonder, is he going to make it for 5 years? Will he make a second contract? Will he make a third contract even? But I think Tua was for sure the pick at 5 for them. They got Fitzpatrick. He can learn behind it. I think Fitzpatrick's a better quarterback than a lot of people give him credit for. He can win football games. He can do some things, and he can mentor them. And that's maybe the craziest part of all these quarterbacks that got drafted is Burrow has a guy in front of him that's been there for a really long time. Obviously Tua will have Fitzpatrick in front of him, but Herbert, that's maybe the one crazy one with, does Tyrod Taylor start the season? Andy Dalton is in Cincinnati. He's obviously been there for a long time. And then you look at Tyrod Taylor and the Chargers. I can't imagine they're going to start Tyrod over Herbert, but we'll see. And then you look at your guy, Jordan Love.
Oh, man.
Behind the best in Aaron Rodgers, one of the greatest quarterbacks to play the game. Obviously, they did the same situation when they drafted Rodgers. Had Brett Favre there. Favre came over, almost won a Super Bowl with my Vikings. Obviously, yeah. I would take Rodgers to this team right now if you wanted to come on over and hang out with us. So, would that be the worst case scenario for Rodgers to come win a Super Bowl in Minnesota?
Man, I don't know how I feel anymore. I just feel like, for being a team that was in the NFC Championship last year, and granted, there was a lot of criticism that the Packers, weren't a great 13-3 team,
Right.
And I can see that, obviously. They got beat pretty handily in the NFC Championship game. They got beat bad by the Niners earlier in the year as well. I'm not sure how drafting a backup quarterback is going to help us get over the hump of, not necessarily a poor receiving room, but it seems like Rodgers only felt comfortable throwing to Devontae Adams. I mean, and as someone that does grade a lot of film, and I graded a lot of the Packers film, at times there were wide receivers that were open, and it just seems like Rodgers didn't have that trust. And you talk about one of the deepest wide receiver draft classes in maybe ever, definitely in recent memory, and the Packers didn't draft a receiver. And instead, with the first, second, and third round pick, they draft a backup quarterback, a third string running back, and a fullback. And I don't know. I don't feel great about the direction of where the Packers are headed. And I mean, you talk about rookie contracts are 4 years long, and Rodgers just signed a 4-year deal.
Yeah.
I'm at a loss a little bit. I try to trust the coaches. Obviously, they know more than we do. But it is interesting. I mean, what are we doing? This is a pass-happy league, and it seems like we're trying to turn back the time a little bit, go back to 1982, and we drafted a 247-pound running back, and we drafted a fullback in the third round. And then they're both good players. Like, I mean, A.J. Dillon's not a bad player, but how is he going to help Aaron Rodgers win a Super Bowl, which is the goal? He's not. He's just not. And you have two really good – you got Jones, who's a really good running back.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, A.J. Dillon will be the third string. He really will be. It's pretty bizarre, to say the least.
I could see A.J. Dillon taking over maybe Jamal Williams' spot a little bit, being that number 2, being that goal line guy. But, I mean, if you're going to take carries away from Aaron Jones, who showed last year he was an absolute beast to take the load, that surprises me. The fullback and the running back in those 2 picks, second and third round, show that the Matt LaFleur clearly wants to run the football, be a more physical football team, which I don't, think is a terrible thing. You got to be able to run the football to action and win in the playoffs. Like, obviously you see, the team, but the 49ers were able to do that last year and be physical and control the game. But we have one of the best quarterbacks in the game as well, and you don't draft a receiver. You have an opportunity to get some really good receivers in some of the spots they picked, and we'll see. Yeah.
It's bizarre. And on top of it, Matt LaFleur, he does want to run the ball.
Yeah.
But he's an outside zone guy. Yeah. He's not a power inside zone, that man duo concept. counter. They don't run a ton of that stuff.
Oh.
A.J. Dillon is not an outside zone back. No, he
Jones
needs.
is.
I mean, Jones is. I mean, he's the perfect fit. He's on his contract here. I understand that, but you would hope that he would be a guy that gets re-signed. If he's not asking for a tremendous amount. And on top of it, the more the league is developing and the more, systems like Pro Football Focus, they're kind of exposing the fact that running backs are interchangeable. They're not as valuable as we once thought. And it's all about the offensive line.
Yeah.
And on top of continuing with the Packers draft, there was a great offensive tackle draft. And we didn't, and it's day 2 ended. We didn't pick an O-lineman.
Yeah.
It was frustrating. It was frustrating all around. We got some guys at the end in day 3, but I mean, there was guys on the board when we're picking, a 247-pound running back and a fullback, and it was disheartening because I feel like it's I mean, you're a Vikings guy. It's uncharacteristic of the Packers, right? They usually have good drafts, and they're not always like, oh, we got the biggest name or the splash, the flashy guy. But it seems like they always make sense, and it always is. There's always like a puzzle that we're fitting in, a piece to the puzzle.
Right.
And it just didn't see. It just seemed like the opposite. It really makes me question the direction that we're going. Like truly, and I mean, I don't want to overreact, or I'm trying hard to stay calm. Obviously, one of our good friends is a Packer, but it really is. It's concerning. Going at the end of the day, the Jordan Love pick's the best pick that the Packers did. Like it really is, which is insane. Because that's not a good pick.
And they traded up to go get Jordan Love.
And they traded up, which I mean that leads you to believe that somebody wanted him, right? Because you would think the Seahawks wouldn't take him, and the Ravens definitely wouldn't take him with Lamar Jackson there. And those are the two. Those are who they jumped ahead of. What's that?
Maybe the Titans, who were ahead of them, I think, as well, would.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, the Titans would make sense, but still, like, if you're Aaron Rodgers, how do you go back in August? Like, really? I mean, they didn't get you anybody. They didn't get you a single person to help you. Hey, and he's not the problem. He has proven it, like consistency over time. He's not the problem. I just don't know how the dynamic in there between him and the coaching staff and the organization, it's not going to be good. And that was the difference this year, in my opinion, with the Green Bay Packers, is everything was really good for the first time. Like from a locker room standpoint, it was a completely different locker room. And that's how they managed to win really close games. A ton of the games they won were close ball games that they found a way to win in the fourth quarter. And they weren't always the most talented team. But we know better than anybody, the most talented team isn't always going to win, but it's the team that can come together, has the best cohesiveness, chemistry, and then they get the other team into the fourth quarter. And that's when they win. That's when they make their money. And how is that locker room going to look now? Because everybody on that roster knows that they obviously don't believe in Rodgers.
No.
Right? I mean, they don't believe in the best player on their team.
You look at his contract coming up. I mean, this year has $51 million if they were to cut him in dead money. Next year would be $31 million in dead money. The year after that, 17. So you're looking at Rodgers probably going to be there. They do have a potential out in 2022. But
yeah, 2022, awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
an NFC championship team, 1 game away.
Yeah.
I mean, and the offense wasn't the problem. Look, last year was not an Aaron Rodgers offense that he's going to thrive in.
No.
But he still got him to the NFC championship game, and they were in position to win it. It was the defense. The defense couldn't stop the run. No, so I don't know how drafting a 247-pound running back is going to help stop the 49ers run game, because it's not, unless they're going to play him at D tackle. Right.
Hey, you never know. But
yeah, I mean, I wasn't trying. I really don't understand it. To me, it's almost like we're giving up a little bit. Like, hey, let's pump the brakes. We're gonna rebuild this thing, and then in 4 years, we're gonna be ready to make a splash. And I'm not the biggest Aaron Rodgers fan. Outside of the fact that I truly think he is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, most talented, I should say.
Yeah.
I don't think many people can argue that there's very few people in the history of the NFL that can sling it like he can. But I'm not like emotionally attached to him like I was to Brett Favre because I grew up and he was my hero and I was 6 years old when they won the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? I'm not attached to Aaron Rodgers, but I just do feel like I feel like they've completely abandoned him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know.
It'd be interesting
That's
to
my
see.
rant.
I mean, one of our former teammates is on the offensive line, and Billy Turner. It sounds like he might join next week, which will be awesome. We'll maybe get his take on this situation. We'll see how.
I don't know if we want Billy's take on this. Him and Rodgers are boys.
Yeah,
I don't know. I spoke to him Saturday morning, but he didn't dive in too much. So,
but
we'll see.
Your Packers did go get another NDSU Bison, Zach Johnson. Signed with the Packers as well, a guard that will help their offensive line. I think a guy that will come, on the 90-man roster, might start as a practice squad type guy. He was an All-American in NDSU, really good football player here, started a lot of football games, moved from tackle to guard this year. I think he has some versatility. I think he'll make that roster. Exciting to see another Bison join the ranks in the professionals. Didn't get drafted like he wanted to, but hey, you have two Rams on that offensive line now. We'll see if he can back that starting lineup. But
that might be the only move that they made that I was excited about, and it was after the draft. But I was excited for Zach. Zach was there my last year when I was just GAing, so I was running the scout team, and he was a worker. And from what I've heard, nothing's really changed. He continues to just grind and get better, and we knew he was going to be good. Right away. I mean, even from when we were recruiting him, we had high hopes for him. And then when he came in on the scout team, I mean, he was special and he never got tired. A lot of guys on the scout team, it sucks, right? Especially when you're playing into January, like NDSU does every season. But he never complained and he always wanted to get better. He would push people. And then obviously he continued to get better. And, he's a big joker and he's an athletic kid, and for an undrafted standpoint, like I said, this is probably the best thing the Packers did, but we'll see how that turns out.
We'll transition to the 2020 going to be NFC North champions, Minnesota Vikings. Obviously we had a couple draft picks in this one. Vikings ended up with 15 draft picks. What do you make of something like that?
I think it's really smart. We just got done talking about the Packers and how they didn't, in my opinion, they didn't help themselves. The Vikings definitely did. And it started with their first round pick and Justin Jefferson. He's a really good player. The only issue that I see with him is that he's a slot guy. And that's kind of where Thielen makes his living a little bit. But I'm not saying having two slot guys isn't a good thing. It is a good thing, but you would like to see that outside X. He was probably the best available at wideout. I mean, outside of the top three that went, and Judy, Lamb, and what was the third? Who was the other Bama guy? Ruggs. Yeah. I think he's going to be a really good player though, and he'll be probably a nightmare for me to watch for a while with the Packers. But no, I thought that was a really good pick. I thought they addressed corner, with the TCU guy, Jeff Gladney. Yeah. He's a really good player. One thing that I thought was interesting, having watched a ton of Big 12 film, is he's going to be in an almost exact same defense from Patterson's defense at TCU, ton of quarters in the Zimmer's defense with the Vikings. So it should be a really easy transition for him, a spot that they desperately needed help in. Again, not to talk badly about players because they're in the NFL and they're all way better than we are. But we just finished breaking down the whole Viking season, and they really struggled at DB. And from what I understand, they re-signed 41. What's his name?
Harris.
Yeah, and then I really like that 22, the Smith, I think. He's a good player. But they need help at corner. This will be a guy that can come in right away and be an immediate impact. It was a really good pick, really good first round for the Vikings.
Yeah, I think they went corner in the first round, went in the third round. They'll have 2 first-round corners on their roster, and Hughes, who's people said he wasn't very good last year. He came off an ACL. Anytime I think you're playing the corner position, coming off an ACL injury, you got to give a guy an extra year to recover. It's really, really hard to get back into things. Drafted a corner out of Mississippi State and Cameron Dantzler. Smaller guy at I think he was like 185 at the combine. Hopefully he's not super fast at that size either. So, but really physical guy, maybe a guy in your red zone that can do some things for you, mix up some coverages. They say he can, stick on guys well, but I think he's got to grow a little bit. But going back to the Jefferson pick, I like it a lot. Like you said, more of a slot guy. He has played on the outside some, but he's really good at running routes. Very similar to Adam. And that's what Kirk Cousins needs. He needs guys to be in the right spot where they're supposed to be. Kirk Cousins, a very timed, rhythm quarterback. If anything's disrupted, if guys aren't in the right spot, he's really, really bad. Obviously, with the offensive line we had last year, there's times where he couldn't get the ball out with guys that were open. But I think Jefferson really fits Kirk Cousins really well, and I think that's going to help him and this offense replace Diggs. I think he could really, put up the same numbers Diggs did last year and completely fill that role for the Vikings, which I'm pretty excited about.
Yeah. Who's their third wideout? They're still missing. They're going to have Thielen now. They'll have Jefferson, but are they going to have anybody? I'm truly asking. I don't really know.
Yeah, they picked up Sharp out of Tennessee, a bigger body, a little bit big guy on the outside. They have old BC Johnson they drafted in the 7th round last year that did some things. If you get Chad Beebe back, you get another kind of, a speed slot type guy. Then they drafted a receiver from Miami later.
Yeah, that Osborne. He can roll. He's fast. Yeah. What was he, like a 4th rounder, 5th rounder? 6 maybe?
I think you see a lot out of Irv Smith and Rudolph this year. I think Irv Smith takes a big jump. The Vikings ran a lot of 2 tight end sets last year, a lot of 122 personnel. With Dalvin Cook in that backfield, I think that's where you want to be. But maybe the most disappointing part of the draft for the Vikings was losing out on Trent Williams. Having to only give up a 4th and a 5th, which San Francisco did. It sucks. He goes to a team that went to the Super Bowl last year. San Francisco, in my opinion, had a really good draft. They're drafting to win immediately now. They know their window, and that stunk. It sounds like he didn't want to come to Minnesota. He would rather have gone to the Niners. You can't fault the guy for that. He played for Shanahan and wanted to get back with them. That would have been huge, but to go get Cleveland out of Boise State in the 2nd round, I think was big. I thought we were going to have to maybe trade up for him. We didn't have to. We got him. He might not be ready day one, especially with this no OTA stuff. But a guy that gives you some depth, maybe goes into guard, plays left guard instead of Elfline this year. You'll leave Riley Reef on the outside. Sounds like they like Drew Samia a lot at the right guard position. Maybe you re-sign Klein. You got O'Neal on the right side and Bradbury in the middle, and hopefully you can mold this offensive line to from below average to above average this year. And if you put an above average offensive line out there with Kirk Cousins' ability to be precise and Dalvin Cook, one of maybe the most explosive backs in the backfield, this offense could be pretty deadly again. Yeah,
I think it all comes back down to this. Now, how much of is the offensive scheme going to hinder Aaron Rodgers? But it comes down to me, just like every year, who's got the best quarterback?
Yeah.
And it is the Green Bay Packers for now. I mean, who knows what's going to happen?
What about Mr.
They might just start Love or something. But, I think the Vikings really set themselves up. I can, and I've kind of felt this for, a few years now, but I feel like the tide's really starting to turn, where the Packers have been dominant for, most of, the last really like 20 years. I mean, obviously the Vikings have had their runs here and there and the Packers have had their downfall, but for the most part, the Packers really have kind of had a dominance over the NFC North. And I really feel like it's turning in towards the Vikings, but I've been feeling like that. And then the Vikings, and then the Packers go 13-3. It's like, what the heck? I don't know. It's interesting.
Obviously you get slotted. The Packers had a down year the year before, and you get to play a little bit easier schedule sometimes. And maybe that was a couple of those extra games. But like you said, they have Aaron Rodgers. That's a major factor for them. It'll be interesting to see how that dynamic develops. Obviously, Stafford will be healthy this year. The Lions should be better.
They will be.
They got some pieces on that defense. I think Nick Foles probably wins a starting spot in Chicago. Mitch Trubisky's probably dead at this point, but we'll see how that goes. They also have 10 tight ends on their roster. Maybe they'll just move Trubisky to tight end as well. That will be I think that team's kind of a hot dumpster fire right now, but
Yeah.
kind of got old quick and they lost some pieces. But I think it'll be a Packer and Viking, race for the championship in the NFC this year. Obviously, an extra team makes the playoffs this year as well. It'd be fun to see Green Bay have to come to Minnesota in the playoffs and see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see. Who knows? Like I said, and I don't want to talk badly about any of these Packers draft picks because I feel like I have. But I mean, Jordan Love's a good player. I mean, he's got tremendous upside. He's almost like they've thought he's going to be Patrick Mahomes a little bit, right? I mean, Patrick Mahomes kind of gave a Jordan Love or even a Justin Herbert hope as far as you can kind of be inaccurate in college if you have the big arm and they can coach you and mold you. I don't think either of them are Patrick Mahomes. That being said, no. But you know what I'm saying though. I don't mind Jordan Love. I really don't. I don't want to act like I just felt like the timing was bad, especially with this draft class with all these wide receivers that you could really, continue to build on what we had last year and just add some depth to that receiving core and add some speed. There was so much speed in this receiving class. It was crazy. And, let's touch on Herbert a little bit just because he did get drafted by the Chargers who have, our other boy Easton Sticks there. I heard my wife told me some rumor that the Patriots are interested in Easton. Did you hear anything about that?
I don't know. We'll see. I'd love for Easton to go out and play with the Patriots. He used to wear 12. He can get that 12 jersey.
There you go. I don't know if you want to wear 12 after that. That's a little. I mean, if anyone can step into some big shoes, it's Easton Stick. I mean, he did that obviously in college, following Carse, and had the best year in FCS football history. But yeah, with Justin Herbert, I don't really understand that pick a ton. Just with, the Chargers they have a really good football team, and I don't know. I would have liked to see a Tyrod Taylor Easton Stick battle and them go elsewhere with number 6 overall. Whether it was, take another one of those receivers that can really, their game. Those 3 were game changers. I feel like, and they fell. And
they have had a bottom 15 offensive line for the entirety of Phillip Rivers' career there. Maybe go get an offensive tackle and protect your quarterback.
A heavy offensive tackle draft class. Maybe a Tim Polisak coach Tristan Wirfs who fell to the Tampa Bay Bucks at 13, which I was really surprised by. I thought he was the best tackle in this draft. He's an athletic freak. I was in I had time. What was it, 2017? I spent some time down in Iowa with Coach Polisak down there and sat in on a couple of his meetings, and we know he's a pretty big, interesting character. But he was as fiery as ever, and I remember him specifically saying, "This Tristan Wirfs guy, he's going to be an absolute freak show. He'll be a first rounder," and he was, and I thought he was the best tackle in this draft. He's just so athletic. But he's going to be starting opposite Joe Haeg down protecting Tom Brady, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think the Vikings were trying to trade up with the Niners to go get him. Obviously, Tampa Bay traded up one spot to block anybody else from getting there. And
right,
I would have loved the Vikings to add that guy to the roster. But the Buccaneers, what an offseason they have done. They got Gronkowski now, Tom Brady, worse in the first round there, which I think is a really good pick. Picked our guy Joe Haeg up from the Colts. I think Joe has some life in him. I would have loved to see Joe end up with the Vikings. He's a very underrated player. It'll be interesting. That Mike Evans and Godwin on the outside with Gronk now. Wow. That running back or that team, that offense is crazy. What you look at is Brady's arm strong enough to go get it to some of these guys. What I kind of say to that is I think yes with his timing on things. Hit those deep routes on the right time. I think Brady will do that. He's not a guy that can scramble around in the pocket and chuck it 60 yards anymore. He just doesn't have the arm for that. Their offense won't look like it did last year with Jameis Winston. It's going to look a little bit different, but they won't turn the ball over nearly as much.
You don't think Brady's going to throw 30 picks?
Man, I think Jameis Winston threw more pick sixes than Brady threw interceptions last year. It's crazy.
Tampa Bay is going to be good. They're an immediate Super Bowl contending team.
For sure.
Immediately.
They had 2 Minnesota Gophers in Winfield Jr., which I think was a steal at 45. I think
I agree. I completely agree. And same with Tyler Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
He's a free show.
Another,
I mean, he's not a 5th-round pick. Like, he is way better than that. And he's a Minneapolis North Polar. He's way better than our own Carlton Littlejohn. The best Polar to ever come out of Minneapolis North, Tyler Johnson. I just can't believe he fell. I really can't. And now with him, Gronk, like you said, they got Goodwin, they got Evans. I mean, those are two – they were both like, what, over 1,100 yards receiving? Probably combined like 18 touchdowns, just those two. Now you had Gronk, Tyler Johnson, who's going to play right away.
Right.
Apparently Wirfs is going to be the left tackle and Haig will be the right tackle. And then you got Tom Brady at quarterback. It's like
they drafted 2 running backs. I think they had Jones last year who came on strong. They drafted a guy out of Vanderbilt, a guy out of Louisiana. So we'll see how those guys play out. And people, say, what's is their defense any good? Their front 7 might have been our top 7. Their secondary was awful, but their front 7 is really, really good. And that team is going to be able to hold some teams, especially if Brady can get them some leads. They'll be able to get after the quarterback. If they just don't, they didn't let up that many points last year in certain situations, and they were put in a lot of bad situations from turnovers. So I really like the Buccaneers next year, and I hate that. My brother's a Buccaneers fan for some reason, and I just hate when talent comes to the NFC because I want my Vikings to make a Super Bowl sometime in my lifetime. And you got to think the Buccaneers are, one of the top 3 favorites of the NFC. You got to put the 49ers in that conversation, and team number 3 is probably pretty wide open at this point. Maybe, you can't, doubt Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. He seems to always just win. But
I think the Eagles, man. I really do. I think the Eagles are going to be back. I mean, they were so injured last year, and they had an interesting draft. They had a really good draft. They went out and they got Jalen Reagor, who's – I actually do think he is better than your boy Jefferson. I thought he was 4th, and I think Jefferson was the 5th best wideout. Okay. I really do. But, he's got speed. He's that guy from TCU. He can play ball. And now they're going to be healthy again. I like the Hurts pick. How do you feel about that?
It's wild. I think –
you don't like it?
I don't hate it. I think Jalen Hurts can play running back in this league. And at that size with what he can do – from you look at Taysom Hill, I think he could be a better Taysom Hill.
Yeah, I completely agree.
He will throw the ball better, in my opinion. He's going to do some stuff. He's more physical. Speaking of the Saints quickly, Jameis Winston sounds like he's going to the Saints and wants to learn under Drew Brees and Sean Payton. So
what's he going to go there for? If he's going to be for free or what?
Right.
He ain't going to be the backup with Hill there.
He'll be the 3rd quarterback. He just wants to learn. Maybe he's playing. This is probably Drew Brees' last year, but to get back to our boy Carson and the Eagles, I like Reagor. They traded for, was it Godwin from the 49ers?
Yes. Yeah. I remember that. Yep.
Get Alshon Jeffrey back healthy, Deshaun Jackson back healthy. Zach Ertz probably if not the 2nd best tight end.
You still got Goddard who played really well, even though he's a jackrabbit.
Yeah. You look at them. Carson was winning football games with a guy that played quarterback in college. That wasn't very good. They were beat up. They had a chance to win a playoff game. If Carson doesn't get hurt, they win that playoff game. I like what they did. I think Jalen Hurts, they maybe could have got him around later. They didn't want to risk it. They took him in that position. I think Doug Peterson is a great offensive mind. What they're going to be able to do with that offense will be interesting. They got some studs. I'm excited to see what that offense looks like. Maybe the biggest downside for the Eagles is Chase Young is now in that mix. He's pretty nasty. The Giants, I thought, drafted pretty well. They got quite a bit better. The Cowboys got quite a bit better as well. So that division definitely got better. It's going to
Cowboys did have a really good draft.
Yeah, they did. They might have had the best draft. I thought they drafted.
The Broncos had a good draft. Everyone but the Packers seemed like they did pretty well.
The Cardinals had a heck of a draft, but
Cardinals had a heck of an offseason.
Mm-hmm. I think Carson can put an MVP year together this year if he stays healthy for 16 games with those weapons. Miles Sanders, I think he's really, really good. With Howard moving on, Sanders kind of gets the load of those carries. I like him to have a big season. That defense, we'll see. The offensive line is a question mark. The defense is a question mark, but I think they might have to win some shootouts. But I think they'll look good. I'll take probably the Eagles to win that division this year.
Yeah, me too. And Carson has proved it. And unfortunately, he's gotten hurt. You know what I mean? I finally feel like we answered the Carson isn't injury prone question when we got to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And then the first drive of the game, Clowney, whether it was dirty or not, who cares, hits him and Carson gets a concussion. But that's another reason why I like the Jalen Hurts pick, because if they have Jalen Hurts a year ago, they beat Seattle.
For
and
sure.
They move on, and Carson gets to play the next week. You know what I mean? Hopefully he was symptom-free, right? But
yeah,
that's why I like it, And if they have a package for Hurts, number one, it's just another thing for defensive coordinators to worry about. And he's a guy that you actually need to be worried about. It's not like where you get some of these athletic quarterbacks where it's like, all right, well, let's make sure we have a quarterback player and we'll go hit this guy 6 times and then he won't do anything else.
Right.
But I think he can actually, especially like you said, Peters. I mean, he's a great football mind, and if it takes some hits off of Carson, I don't mind that either. Let's have him finish one, and let's have him get a Super Bowl where he's starting.
No, for sure. Another team we'll jump to Tuska, our guy, former NDSU defensive end, passed me on the all-time sack leader list this year, unfortunately, but gets drafted 1 pick before Mr. Irrelevant in the 7th round, going to the Broncos, gets to learn behind Bradley Chubb and Von Miller. I think that's a good situation for him.
I mean, it's pretty remarkable, right? I mean, Tuska's another guy that, I mean, he's an athletic project, right? For the the Broncos had, that was a good pick. I mean, the 7th round, second to last overall pick. I'm a little surprised he didn't get picked up earlier. I didn't watch a ton of NDSU film or games this year, but God, I've seen him play. I mean, he's a good player, and he's going to be like you said, he's going to be able to learn from 2 of the best edge rushers in the NFL, and Von Miller, who's as creative as it gets.
Right.
He couldn't be happier, I would imagine, right? I mean, he's obviously not going to go in and beat out Von Miller, but I mean, he can really kind of hone in and be a specialty type player, come in situations where he can eat, and hopefully he's never really going to have anything but a one-on-one.
Right. Yeah. I his hustle, I think, is you turn his film on, his motor never stops. And that's something I don't think you can teach. They'll teach him to refine his pass rush move, refine his get off, the way he attacks guys. And, maybe he's a little bit short with the arms, arm length and stuff to be a dominant pass rusher. We'll see how that plays out. But I think he's in a great spot to learn and develop him. The Broncos, another team I thought, gave their offense, they gave Drew Lock some weapons. They went pretty offensive in this draft. I think they gave them a chance. I think they look at their division and go, hey, how do we keep up with the Chiefs? Well, we have to score a bajillion points, so we're going to reload our offense. And I think they gave themselves a chance to compete in that division. Obviously, the Chargers, I think, will be good in that division. But I really like the Broncos to make a rebound this year and be a lot better football team.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I thought they had a really good draft. There was a number of teams that had a really good draft.
Yeah.
My team just wasn't one of them.
But it's hard to see. I saw something today that whenever the year Russell Wilson was drafted, they said they got an F grade. They said the Russell Wilson pick was a terrible pick, and there was a linebacker. I can't remember. They traded up to the 15th pick to take him, and that was a terrible pick. And he probably both are going to be Hall of Fame guys at this point.
I don't want to hear it, Cole. I don't want to hear you try to give me any sympathy, because what's the best case scenario for Jordan Love? Best case scenario. He's Aaron Rodgers. He's the best quarterback in the last 20 years. That's the best case. So we're, essentially screwing over one quarterback by not giving him any help and essentially showing him the door, right?
But he doesn't see the field until 2022 unless Rodgers gets hurt.
Until 2023 with his contract. That's his whole rookie year. Why did we do this?
It's crazy. I mean, look at Patrick Mahomes, what you can build around rookie quarterbacks. Jared Goff, what they will do it. You can spend so much money when you have these rookie quarterbacks. I mean, obviously, Foles went and did it with Carson. Obviously, Foles, came in and stepped in and won that. But there's not a lot of guys winning Super Bowls besides Tom Brady. But he takes a discount, to be able to put weapons around him. That when the Chiefs might have to pay Patrick Mahomes $40 million this year. I mean, it might be something.
Let's say Jordan Love is the guy that we want, so he just doesn't play for 4 years, and then all of a sudden, before he ever really has to play, we're going to pay him, like you said, $40 million this year or in 2023?
I mean,
whatever it is.
mean, you're paying not that great quarterbacks $25 to $30 million right now. You look at a few years ago, I mean, my boy Kirk's making 30 a year. So, but
I'm a Kirk Cousins fan. You know, he just doesn't seem to win the big one, man.
Doesn't win the big one. You got to put an offensive line around him. I think if the offensive line could be above average this year, the Vikings can win 13 games. If the Vikings offensive line is anywhere near average, they'll be around 8 to 10 wins. It's going to come down to what the offensive line can do, and hopefully it pays off for them. And one last bison that was picked up, going to the Jaguars. The Jaguars seem to love Ben Ellefson, a very, very physical tight end. Kind of thought he had a chance to get drafted late there. I think he's going to be a guy that surprises people. He is really, really good in the run game. You need a guy that can mix it up and block from the tight end position. He's a guy that can do that, and he can still get out and catch passes. So I like Ben to have a shot to make the Jaguars. The Jaguars seem like a dumpster fire. They don't know what they're doing over there. So
what do they do offensively? Are they trying to run the ball a little bit or what?
I think they want to be physical.
Pay attention to the Jaguars ever.
I think they want to be physical with Leonard Fournette and use him in the running game and set up their play action passing game for Minshew. Minshew came from a spread offense. I love to sling it. So I think they don't want to get too far away from that and make him try to learn something completely different. But you also got to feed Leonard Fournette the football because he is a workhorse back there. So I don't think they really know what they want to do. They threw Leonard Fournette a ton of passes out of the backfield last year, which was something new for his career. I don't think Minshew's the guy either. I think he's okay. I think he's maybe a top 20 quarterback. He's 15 to 20 in that. They don't have a ton of weapons on the outside. I don't expect the Jaguars to be great. Their pass rushers, best pass rushers holding out, want to no new contract. They don't seem to like to pay guys in Jacksonville. So we'll see what happens with them. But hopefully Ben can make that roster. We had a guy there, Matt Veldman, a few years back that I played with.
That was more than a few years back. That was a good minute ago.
We're getting a little bit older. What was that? 2013. He was on that roster.
Shoot, yeah, it was a while ago. And then DeLuca was there, right?
Yeah, DeLuca was there 2 years ago.
I think Ben will make it though. I really do. And not to, say anything about the other two. I probably thought for sure Nick will make it. I don't know what happened, but I think Ben will make it. Because he's athletic too. And he can he's not going to make you miss in the open field, but he can get open. He's a decent route runner, and he's got really good hands. And on top of it, he's got to be almost immediately he'll be one of the best run blocking tight ends.
For sure. He'll be their best run blocking tight end day one. That's what he does best. Yeah. And when he catches footballs, he's wide open because his run blocking is so good. He's so able to get open in that play action game because he's such a great run blocker. So
yeah.
I like his chances. Hopefully, make that roster. I wonder if the NFL will do anything with rosters this year to expand them at all. With a lack, of practice, worried about guys getting hurt. If they'll expand the rosters a couple guys, or maybe expand the practice squad a couple players.
Well, they have to expand it now with the new deal that they signed.
Next year.
Oh, that's next year. What is it going to be now? It's going to be
they're adding. I don't know exactly what the roster situation is. I know they're adding the game on the schedule next year, but they're adding the playoff team this year. But I think they're adding 3 roster spots or something like that, and they're expanding practice squad as well.
I'm looking it up quick. NFL.
We'll see. I think that it'll be interesting to see.
55. So it's really not.
Two
you would like to still see more than that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do with that extra game. It's got to be an international game, right? It's got to be a neutral site international.
I don't know. I'm surprised that they went through with it a little bit.
The guys didn't want to be tested for weed and wanted a little bit of pay raise. So
Yeah. I guess in theory though, it really helps the bottom half, talent wise of the NFL. So I guess in that case, it just kind of sucks if you're one of those, big time players where you're getting paid a ton of money and you probably don't want to play that extra game. But if you're on the lower half and now they raise the league minimum, you got to be jumping for joy a little bit there. So I get it, but I am surprised a little bit. I didn't think when I first heard it, I thought it was silly. But
hey, we get paid an extra week to break down film, so
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. We do.
I'll take that for sure. But
are you pumped for this Last Dance tonight or what?
Yeah, I love Michael.
It's all D-Rod tonight.
Yeah, Dennis Rodman's probably the best story on there. Michael Jordan's obviously He is what he is. He's one of the greatest, if not the greatest, basketball player of all time. They'll say he's the greatest. I think it's hard to compare guys in eras. Even you can take Wilt Chamberlain. You can't compare him to anybody nowadays.
No, yeah, you're exactly right.
Dennis Rodman is maybe the biggest wild card ever to play professional sports. Like, it is absolutely insane.
I'm so pumped. I'm so pumped for tonight. I literally, if we got 30 minutes on the dot, I'm so excited. Because I hope they're going to show some truly behind the scenes I've never seen before stuff. Because I have followed the '90s Bulls.
Right.
Just like we talked about earlier. I was 6 years old when Brett Favre won his first and unfortunately only Super Bowl with the Packers. And I was also 6 years old when Michael Jordan started the next three-peat. They were both in 1996. So, I followed the Bulls. I got Bulls posters and everything. I'm still a child. But I'm so excited. Especially because with Dennis Rodman. Michael Jordan, Brett Favre, and Dennis Rodman are my athletic heroes.
Yes.
So I'm hoping they have some pretty crazy details, some footage of him just being wild. I don't know. I'm excited. They're going to show the Pistons Dennis, which is, that's the best Dennis.
That'll be
that's
fun.
When those guys were so good, and he was such a complete freak show athlete. And then when he got to the Bulls, he was just so smart. He was such a smart defender and smart rebounder. But when he was with the Pistons, you're going to be like, oh my God, how can somebody do this?
So what do you think of the criticism people are putting on Jordan now, saying he couldn't do it without Pippen?
He couldn't do it without Pippen.
Nobody can.
No, LeBron couldn't do it without Kyrie or Love. Everyone plays a part, and no. Kobe couldn't. Well, Kobe did do it, I guess. Kobe probably is the only one that did it with. He had Paul Gasol late in his career, but
how many titles does Kobe Bryant have if it wasn't for the Spurs?
Yeah,
him and Shaq.
He's got 5.
Oh.
Yeah, you say the same thing with Michael, right? How many titles does Michael have if he doesn't retire twice? Now, obviously, with The Last Dance, you kind of understand why it ended because of Jerry Krause forcing out Phil and everything, and they had mad beef with each other. Crazy, right? He's quote, "You can go 82-0 and you will not be the coach next year."
Could you imagine Robert Kraft calling Bill Belichick last year, a couple years ago, hey, this is the last run, you're done.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's what it is.
It is crazy. But no one can do it by themselves. And yeah, I know it. And yeah, it's pretty wild. But it's so good. It's so good. I love it because there's nothing going on right now.
Yeah.
The NFL, I normally don't get that excited for the NFL draft, but it was like it's a breath of fresh air, like jeepers. We finally get some football. We had the UFC a week ago and it got canceled.
Right.
And now they're apparently doing one May 9th, and that card's unbelievable. But other than that, I haven't been that excited in a while. Other than The Last Dance right now, it's sweeping the nation, I hope.
I was crazy excited for the draft. They had monster numbers for the draft as well, obviously with no sports out there. Obviously this time of year, competing with playoff basketball, competing with playoff hockey, the NFL is always going to reign supreme on everything. But the way it did, obviously with baseball too, but the way it, pulled those numbers and gave some people something to watch. I think Jordan in that show did 6.1 million or something like that last year, or last the draft, 15 or 16 million on.
That's crazy that many more people watch the draft than the Jordan.
Yeah.
I would way rather watch The Last Dance than the draft. I'll look at the draft and be like, oh, okay, the Packers screwed it up. Awesome. You know what I mean? That's wild that only 6.4 million is a ton of people to watch The Last Dance, but you would think there'd be more.
I think it helped having the draft on ABC as well, instead of just ESPN. Is that some people don't have ESPN, so don't have access to it, but yeah, it's wild, but we'll put a wrap here on the first episode of the Dynasty Sports Podcast. Joey Blackmore down in beautiful Florida. Thanks for joining. And next week it sounds like we'll have Billy Turner on. It's gonna be a fun one.
Yeah, we got to get Billy on. We'll be excited for that. We'll avoid any current state of the Packers talk. Okay, we can't do that.
Maybe one question. We'll just ask.
I'll let you ask that question because Billy will yell at me.
Yeah.
All right, brother.
Billy's a big man. I don't want to get yelled at.
No.
All right. Thanks, Joey.
Yeah, we'll see you.